I want to welcome all to the North Kitsap Service Center Open House. My name is Jacques Dean. I'm the road superintendent for Kitsap County. I appreciate your interest and attendance at this meeting. Although we're just now starting the architectural and engineering phase of this project, we're hopeful that we'll be able to provide you with some information that is helpful to understanding the overall project. Next screen. So before we get started, there's a few housekeeping items that I need to share with you. First off, this Zoom meeting will be recorded. After the meeting, the recording will be available on our county webpage. If you don't already have this written down, or if it wasn't in the email, you might want to write it down now so you can get to the information. But also on this page is where we will store all information related to the project, such as geological reports or geotechnical reports, hydrological reports, wetland reports, our site plans as we develop them. That'll all be there for you to look at. On that page, we also have a comment and question form that you'll be able to fill out throughout the duration of the project, and we'll respond to you as we get close. During this meeting, all attendees will be muted to ensure audio quality, and to make sure that everybody's able to hear the presentation. And then when we get to the question and answer phase, that everybody's able to pose their questions and hear the answers. In accordance with Title VI ADA requirements, we will provide an interpreter or a translation of this meeting or any other documents that we have on the site. Information for that is available on this slide. Next page. As I said, we will have a question and answer period at the end of this meeting. We're looking at probably 20-30 minutes or up to 6:30 when the meeting ends for attendees to answer questions and for county and consultant staff to answer questions. So you'll see here there's two options to ask questions. On your screen, you will have a hand raise feature that you can engage. Also you'll be able to type questions into the Q&A dialog box. For those that are calling in, if you dial *9 on your keypad, that'll signal when you want to comment. Yeah, next page. So the North Kitsap Service Center agenda, we're gonna talk about. I'll provide introductions. We'll give you a project overview, our processes to date, next steps, and then at the end we'll have the Q&A session. So introductions. On the call we have panelists with the county, including myself. We have Commissioner Robert Gelder. We have Andrew Nelson, the Director of Public Works, Joe Rutan, the County Engineer, Chris Piercy, the Solid Waste Program Manager, Rick Gilbert, who is responsible for the household hazardous waste facilities. We have from OTAC, Jeff Massey, who is the Project Manager. Christina Hayworth is she's a planner and the public outreach specialist for OTAC. And then we also have with us David Nightingale, who is a sub-consultant to OTAC. He's with Special Waste Associates and has managed and developed household hazardous waste collection facilities all over the state, and I think the country as well. So that's the county and OTAC team. Project overview. So the North Kitsap Service Center will be comprised of the road operations and maintenance facility and a household hazardous collection facility. So the road operations will be comprised of crew and administrative buildings and maintenance bays to repair and maintain our equipment. We'll have various storage around the site and also bulk material storage. aggregates, and things that we use to maintain roadways. The household hazardous waste facility will have a couple collection pads where citizens are able to bring their household hazardous waste to the site, and then that material will be stored in a contained building for safe storage. Next phase, or next slide. So the purpose of the project, the North Kitsap facility is currently located on the corner of Bond and Gunderson Road. The purpose of this project, well, that facility is on less than 3 acres. It's undersized. It's operationally inefficient, more or less, because of the lack of size. The buildings are arranged, you know, this facility was, some of the buildings on this facility were built in 1929. So this facility has been around for a long time. Buildings were sited at the time when they were needed. And with the vehicles that we have now, the size of the vehicles, the siting of the building, the site's just not efficient. We also have ingress and egress issues due to the peak, you know, the peak volume, peak travel times during the day. And so we're looking for a facility that will improve capacity and efficiency, an increased level of service for performing maintenance, and also to site a household hazardous waste collection facility. So to date, in 2016, we engaged with an architectural firm to begin a facility needs analysis for all 3 of our county road shops. They're all old, all 1950s era. Like I said, on this north shop, we actually have, you know, some 1929s era buildings, but they're all in a state of disrepair and in need of upgrade or replacement. At one point, we evaluated combining both the central and north shops during this needs analysis. Somewhere along the distance of the district lines, which is about the Luato and Trigger Road area, we would be looking at a site about 20 acres in size. So we had trouble finding any property that met that need. And as part of that study, we determined that crew response times, because they would not be centrally located in their districts, would add significant increased cost for maintenance work for both districts. And ultimately, though, we decided that the North Shop needed a facility to serve its patrons in the North District, in large part based on the growth management projections for the North Kitsap area. So we started looking at sites there in the North Kitsap District of adequate size. Next screen. So as part of that, both our consultant and our county real estate services group began a site search for potential properties in the North District area. We had prerequisites that we preferred for a site. One, it had to be centrally located, as I mentioned. During the needs analysis, we determined that we needed a site about 10 acres in size, 10 acres minimum, to accommodate the buildings and vehicle movements and storage. We were looking for land that had proper land use zoning that was in unincorporated Kitsap County, because we're a county, we're not city, and also one that has sufficient ingress and egress. So we found 7 potential sites that we evaluated. We also advertised in all the real estate venues, and we only got 2 responses. For various reasons, all were ruled out except for this Bond Gunderson site. It was the only site that met all of those prerequisite needs. So this Bond Gunderson site is 16 acres in size. Of course, it's centrally located on Bond Road, so our service times both north and south will be efficient. It's got proper zoning. It's actually in what's called a Blanchard, a local area of more intense rural development. It's in unincorporated Kitsap County, and we have a controlled intersection access. There's a traffic signal at the Bond Gunderson intersection, so it'll be a safe, efficient access. Next screen. So once this site was located, we did we did a feasibility analysis. We looked at, we met with DCD, the Department of Community Development, to talk about zoning to ensure that this property supported our use. We did a title report. We did a phase 1 environmental assessment. We evaluated utility availability, and we also did a land appraisal. During the process, we engaged with the property owner to talk about water. He subsequently has brought water to the site. He's also agreed to construct an internal roadway, which will provide access to our property, as well as to surrounding nearby parcels within the Lambert. Once we had that settled, we engaged in purchase negotiations, and we finalized purchase this last December in 2020. Concurrent with that, we solicited for design services. We actually started it back in October. We reviewed submittals from over a dozen consulting firms and ultimately selected OTAC to provide both architectural and engineering services for this project. We've worked with OTEC in the past. They're a quality organization. They have a multidisciplinary team within. It's an internal team, so that brings with it some efficiencies as they're collaborating on the best ways to design this project. They're a great company. We're real excited to have them on board. So before I turn this over to OTAC, I'm gonna invite Chris Piercy to talk a little bit about the household hazardous waste facility.
Yeah, thanks, Jacques. This is an exciting project for us in the solid waste division. As many of the people on the call here, I'm sure, have been to our household hazardous waste facility that we already have down in Bremerton, near the Bremerton National Airport, in the over by the transfer station. Excuse me. And we've been successfully operating that program now for in excess of 20 years, and we have an outstanding record in not only helping residents of this county get some of the common household hazardous materials they might have out of the waste stream, but we've also maintained an impeccable safety record at that site as well. And it's a program we're very proud of. And the one, I would say, limitation to the current system is that that particular facility is about as far south in our county as it can be. And one of the apparent things that's come up over the last several years is that there's a definite underutilization of that facility in the north end. That it is quite apparent that most of our customers come either out of North Mason counties or some of the more southern zip codes, and we've had to conduct collection events up north on a yearly basis, alternating between Bainbridge Island and North Kitsap, in order to make sure that we do serve equitably across the county. Obviously, having annual collection events we don't feel is an equitable solution. So that's really, I think, the main goal for us here, is that not only will we be able to increase our ability to remove some of these materials out of the common waste stream and people's garages, but we will also be able to provide an equitable access model where we feel like we can serve all of the residents of the county in an effective fashion. So I'm looking forward to the questions and answers at the end. So I will save my long-winded narrative about our program in case there are any questions later on. But thank you, Jacques.
Hi, I'm Jeff Massey. I'm Senior Project Manager with OTAC Consulting. So on behalf of the OTAC team, I too am thrilled to be working on this project and really assist the county in delivering these facilities to the citizens of Kitsap County. So what you see here is our anticipated design schedule. And I should say that this is kind of a bar, or known as Gantt chart. There is also a timeline that's consistent with these times that's listed on the project website that the county has. So I'll be going through it in a little more detail, these different phases: data collection, site planning, 30% design, 60, 90, and 100% design. As you can see on the bar chart, it shows you that we're here in April in 2021. So with that, I'll get into the data collection and analysis phase just a little bit more. And so you see a lot of the data collection really includes site investigations. So one of the things that our scientists did is they got a hold of the critical areas report that was prepared by a different consultant and commissioned by the previous property owner, and really wanted to go out there and I just confirm the findings of that earlier investigation and report. So that's been done. The field work has been done, and they'll put that together in a draft report. It'll be finalized, and at some point in time, be put on the county website before too long. Geotechnical borings, that site investigation has been done. Test pits, 3 borings. The borings went down like 50 feet. What it showed was there was a lot of glacial till, very compacted, dense sands and gravels. So it's good for many things, building foundations, protecting the underlying aquifer. It's not so good for infiltrating stormwater. We'll get into that a little bit more. But the site survey, kind of mapping, it's a topographic survey. So that has, the field work's been done. We've received the map, and it's got things identified in there, including the critical areas boundaries that I mentioned previously. And then some of the other activities is this planning and zoning research. It'll research things like what are the building setbacks from the property line? What sort of landscaping requirements on there? And it'll look into kind of the county permitting process so we can anticipate the steps that we need to go through. And really, so those are the activities, the deliverables that come out of that is the critical area study. I already talked about the field work, the geotech report. And this is listed as preliminary. And what I mean by that is it's preliminary to the early stages design that we're in. Once the design advances past the 30% design stage, we may have need for perhaps some more geotechnical investigation or analysis. We'll get that determined pretty soon. But that preliminary geotech report should be available for people to look at before too long. And from the planning and zoning research comes the development regulations memorandum. So moving on to the next phase, we're really starting that in earnest right now, which is the site planning phase. So things we're doing right now is we're looking at the programming that was put together by the consultant that Jacques mentioned earlier. I think it was TCF Architects. They anticipated the amount of employees, equipment, vehicles, those types of things, associated, square footage needed for these types of uses on site. So we're going through that, we're reviewing it, we're confirming some things. And then we're going to be preparing 2 conceptual site alternatives. There's a lot of things to fit, and it needs to fit on there in a particular way on the project site. So we're coming up with 2 alternatives. We're also doing some consultation with some of the state agencies, such as Department of Ecology. Let them know what's going on. It'll help us in the future permitting phases coming up. And so the anticipated deliverables is the site planning technical memorandum. And so we should have a preferred alternative. The OTAC team should help put together a preferred alternative that we can recommend to the county. Of course, the county will have a chance to look at this, review it, and if there's changes that need to be made, we'll go ahead and address those. So once the preferred alternative is chosen by the county, then that'll give us the leeway to go ahead and launch the 30% design. It's really a refinement of the selected site alternative. So we'll be preparing plans. We'll be, when it comes to the SEPA environmental review process, we know there's been a lot of interest in this project from a lot of the external stakeholders and other interested parties. So we anticipate putting together the SEPA checklist and issuing it earlier than we might typically do, just because of the raised interest in this particular project. So the deliverables that will come out of the 30% design phase, I mentioned the plans. Those plans will go into the design report. It'll cover a whole host of things, narrative put together by some of the disciplines, We're talking mechanical, electrical engineering, landscaping, civil engineering, geotechnical engineering, which we mentioned previously. A lot of stuff goes in there to talk about the certain elements, especially Waste Associates will certainly have narrative in there and probably a couple documents in an appendix. And an important thing that needs to come out of the 30% design is the cost estimate. So the county can react, figure out what decisions might need to be made, and basically better anticipate what the cost is going to be so they can deal with that. I mentioned the stormwater report. It'll be preliminary. We anticipate once the project advances past 30% design, there'll be a final stormwater report, but it's going to be looking at things like water quality treatment, which is necessary, and which is also necessary is flow control to limit the downstream impacts and to basically mitigate any additional flow that might erode streams. So that's the purpose for flow control. And, we'll be looking at a few things. I mentioned infiltration is going to be challenging here, but we'll at least address it. We might look at something like dispersion in forested areas on the project site. And we'll certainly look at more traditional ways of doing flow control, including like stormwater ponds or underground vaults. And then when it comes to 60, 90, and 100% design phases, that's really just refining the plans, fleshing things out, really get into the nitty gritty. And, towards the end of this design, it's really to confirm that we're addressing the things that needed to come up, that the comments that came up during these different reviews. So we'll prepare the draft, do internal quality control, quality assurance, turn it over to the client, in this case, the county, for their review and approval. During these phases is the project permitting. We'll do environmental permitting as necessary through state and federal agencies. Also, the county land use and construction permits. And really the anticipated deliverables is the 100%, we call it contract manual. It's the plans, it's the specifications, it's the estimate of quantities that will allow the county to solicit bids, award a contract, execute a contract, and ultimately construct the project. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Christina. As Jacques mentioned, she is the planner and public outreach lead on this project. Christina?
Thank you, Jeff. So we've put together a public outreach strategy to help ensure that everyone who is interested can stay aware of and involved in this process. Jeff previously discussed all of the different phases, and we're going to be hosting an open house or virtual open house at the end of each of those phases so that we can share information and get feedback from you, the residents or constituents, and really make our project the best project it can be. So we're here towards the end of the data collection and analysis phase in our first public open house, with additional open houses scheduled for the end of the site planning phase, the end of the 30% design phase, and towards the middle of the SEPA environmental review process, towards the end of the 60% design phase and then 90% design phase. And these are really intended to present information and solicit feedback for review and consideration and incorporation into the project as appropriate. The last open house is after the 100% design phase, and this will be the opportunity to talk about specifically what the construction of this project might look like and how it could impact the surrounding neighborhoods. In addition to the virtual open houses, there are other opportunities for public involvement in this process. There's a public comment period associated with the SEPA environmental review process. There will also be a public comment period with the land use permitting that will be conducted for this project. Next slide, please. Thank you. Finally, you can submit comments at any time directly to the staff that are leading this project. You heard from Jacques earlier, and Iric O'Neill works closely with Jacques as the outreach coordinator assigned to this project You can reach them at the contact information listed on this slide. You can also visit the project website where, as previously mentioned, all of the project-related documents will be kept up to date, project schedule kept up to date, information about outreach opportunities like the virtual open houses kept up to date as well. And that web address, for those who are not viewing the slideshow, is kcowa.us/NKSC. Next slide, please. Right now, we are going to open it up for questions and answers for the next about 30 minutes until the meeting ends at 6:30. Next slide, please. So as a reminder, for those who have chosen to attend by computer or mobile device, please raise your hand if you would like to make a verbal comment or ask a verbal question, or please type your question or comment into the Q&A dialog box. I see that some folks have already found the Q&A dialog box, and we have a couple of questions about traffic that we will answer. For call-in users, you can dial *9 from your phone's keypad to signal that you would like to make a verbal comment. If you are not interested in making a verbal comment but would like to make a written comment, I would again refer you to the project website where you can access the comment form or reach out to Jacques and Eirik at the email address on the previous slides. So while I wait for folks to raise their hands to ask questions and make comments, I will read out the questions from the Q&A panel. So these are both related to traffic. Have you done a study on the increase of traffic on Gunderson Road? Have you considered lowering the speed limit approaching the main entrance? And have you considered the traffic congestion on Stottlemyre and Gunderson Road due to eastbound trucks crossing traffic on Gunderson Road into the main entrance?
So this is Jeff. You know, we are contracted to get through 30% design. Once we get the 30% design finished, then we can move on to final design. And we're here to assist the county as necessary to work out whatever traffic issues are forthcoming. So we'll get the memo put together that was discussed earlier, which is that looking at the Kitsap County requirements for permitting, see what is necessary there. And if necessary, if the county wishes us to engage with WashDOT as it relates to those traffic operations, we certainly will. But I know that there's been some discussion with WashDOT on this project to date.
Jacques, did you have anything you'd like to add to the question on traffic?
I responded to it in writing. But the traffic division has obtained traffic counts for that proposed intersection at the entrance into the site. They required the original owner to widen the roadway at that location to allow for construction of a left turn pocket into the site. At this point, you know, it's unsure yet what the total traffic counts are going to be for the Blanchard. But for our existing use, it was determined that that left turn pocket will improve or will mitigate for our traffic in and out of the site.
Thank you. The next question that we have is there any environmental problem that would be a big enough concern to stop this project?
Who wants to take a shot at that one? I guess I could start out. We mentioned something about the critical areas. We have a good idea what the buffer are. We're confirming that right now. You've got streams, you've got wetlands, predominantly on the eastern side. So no, the county did their due diligence. They understood the size of parcel that was needed. They have a pretty good idea of the available space to build things on this parcel. And we do not anticipate any issues with moving forward with this project to complete the proposed improvements on it.
Thanks. Here's another question. Can you speak more about stormwater management on this site, specifically the protection of the wetland and on-site creek?
So I'll take a shot at that. So I'm a civil engineer, dealt with drainage. The thing that you can be certain that we will do is we'll follow all the applicable codes, whether it be state, federal, county. We have staff here at OTAC that specialize in stormwater engineering. We'll put these reports together. We'll do it in consultation with Kitsap County, not only our clients, but also with community development. And so now that we have a lot of the field investigation done, then we can sit down, come up with some potential solutions. I mean, I already mentioned that we have to take a look at infiltration. Is it going to work that well? Jury's still out, but I'm not extremely hopeful. But I am not the one who will be coming up with that final determination. It will be our stormwater engineers here. We will take care of water quality treatment. We will take care of flow control, all in conformance with standards and applicable laws.
Another question from the chat, and then I see we have some hands raised, so I'll turn to that after this question. How are public comments processed? For example, who reviews them and how are they used? Please give examples of where changes have been made based on public comments. I think that's a question perhaps for Jacques. Jacques, you need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, so we'll review these public comments on a regular basis. You know, depending on the question, we'll have to potentially go to different sources. You know, if it's traffic related, if it's a zoning related or building related question. There's other people here at the county that work in those areas that have expertise in those areas. In any event, we'll respond to the questions best we can with pertinent information. What was the second part of that question?
If we could provide examples of where project changes had been made as a result of public comments.
Well, specific to this project, we haven't really moved yet. We haven't done anything. We're in that process right now. If we're talking about projects in general, the county takes in comments quite often. We, you know, building roads and bridges, we engage with the public, we engage with other stakeholders, utility companies, and we incorporate changes best we can when we can. So that'll be the same here. We'll consider questions, ideas, suggestions, and we'll look at whether or not it's feasible. We're going to be working, like Jeff said, within the current guidelines, where we can make some concessions. We'll consider those.
Kitsap Environmental Coalition, if you could please unmute your microphone and ask your question.
Oh, hi, everyone. Hey, my name is actually Reed Blanchard. Hey, Jeff, everybody. Hey, Jacques, you mentioned earlier that there was going to have I think, an access road through the Arness property that would serve, it sounded like it would serve the parcel, and then that road would provide access to other parcels in the Lambert. Could you speak a little more in detail to that, of how that road might play a part in this project?
Yeah, so the road will actually, one approach will come off Gunderson just to the east of Stottlemyre. You can actually see it's already constructed. The approach is constructed. It'll run north right up to the boundary of our property, and it will turn west and connect with Bond Road, just at that southwest corner of our parcel down. So yeah, Jeff is showing it on the map now. So it'll run north-south and then turn west to Bond Road. And so that roadway will serve access to our parcel, but also potential future parcels within the Blanchard. Does that answer your question, Reed?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, it does. I guess one follow-up would be, what other parcels? I'm guessing, you know, the I'm thinking of the development in the neighborhood. Is that kind of where this might be headed, or like what is the extent of the Blanchard around this area?
Of course, this is it's within a Blanchard, a local area of more intense rural development. And if you look at the county's parcel map, you'll see those parcels on this property. Now, what the intent is for them, I don't know. I don't know what kind of uses are planned, if there are any even now. I'm not privy to that. That's private property, but the intent is to build this internal roadway to service all the parcels within that Blanchard.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
So the next question that we have, I think this is actually a question for me. Do you have any early indications of possible needs for variances from county or state permitting? And until we get further into site planning, we just really don't have any early indication of a need for variance of any type. We really need to see first verify the site and building program needs, and then see really how they fit on the site before we can tell whether a variance would be necessary or even feasible. And so at this point, we don't have any idea on the need for a variance.
Christina, Rob Gelder here. Is it possible that I can share my screen for a moment? I have the parcel map up that shows the zoning and some of the lot lines that might help explain a little bit for Reed's question.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I stopped sharing, so Robert, I think you can go ahead and share now.
Great. So is everyone seeing this?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so this is all these brown parcels are what are part of the Blanchard here at Gunderson and Bond in Stottlemyre. The alignment basically of the roadway Jacques was talking about would follow this Arness property that folks are familiar with there, follow along here, and then take a dogleg back out to Bond Road. What it does is it provides connectivity to this parcel, this parcel, this parcel, along with the county parcel overall. So that's why I think the comment you're talking about connectivity not only to the county parcel, but to other parcels in the Blanchard.
Thank you, Commissioner Gilder. The next question that we have is, what will you do with the current site?
I'm not sure what current, are you talking about the cleared area? I'm not
I think
sure
the existing north service
the
shop.
existing road shop. Okay, yes. We will be selling that road shop. Once we vacate it, we'll sell it. There's been some interest in the past from private developers looking at that property. There's a higher and better use for it. It's right in the gateway coming into Paulsbo. So there has been some interest in the past, but ultimately we will sell the property, and then we'll use the funds that we use the funds that we get from the sale of the property to either help to pay off this road shop or to help fund the other two. That's been the discussion to date anyway.
Great. The next question that we have is in several parts, so I'll ask them maybe one or two at a time. Why are environmental studies and community outreach being done after the purchase of the property?
So I'll speak to that. So as part of the vetting process, once we identified this parcel, we did do a bunch of different research. And one was evaluating the study that was done by the owner's consultant. They did, a wetland delineation. They had some maps that showed the critical areas, and so we identified those. We knew that there were some critical areas in the area that we would have to work with, that we would have to retain, stay away from, maintain setbacks. And we knew we'd follow up with our own study just to confirm or to build upon that previous study. As far as community outreach goes, we were looking for property that had an existing legal use. And so this went through a comprehensive review. I think it was back in 2000 and then again in 2009. When the property was zoned in the community, all citizens were given an opportunity to comment on that comprehensive plan. So it had proper legal zoning, and so we reached out to buy the property. We didn't feel at that point that was necessary. We knew all along after the fact, as we got into this project, that we would include the public. The tribe has been informed from the get-go. I've met out with the tribe, both the S'Klallam and the Suquamish, out on the site 2 different times. We've walked the parcel. We've talked about some other work that's going to occur on the Arness property. And so the tribe's aware of the project. When you're talking about dispersion into forested areas, this is a stormwater approach. And rather than a concentrated discharge out of a pipe, it's dispersing the runoff in a broad fashion so that it's allowed to dissipate and infiltrate into the forest duff. And then the next question is for you, Jeff.
The question is, does OTAC have members from affected communities on its team?
Christina, can you help me interpret what the gist of the question is here? Are you saying are we practicing good hiring? Are we having good hiring practices to make sure that we open it up to all race, creeds, and colors? Is that what you interpret it as?
From the other questions that were included in this comment, I would interpret this to ask to be asking more about local knowledge and the sense of character or place, and whether the OTAC team truly understands that.
And I think that's part of the outreach. I mean, I'm not going to claim that. I mean, I will say that Christina did grow up on the peninsula, for what it's worth. But that's part of the reason why we have outreach is the community should be involved, should know what's going on. If there are particular pieces of information that you think are particular to the site that we need to know, obviously we'll address all comments. So we'll do that in the best manner that we can.
The next question is, will there be regular testing of the water and runoff, especially as it goes into the water table?
So this is Jeff. Whatever solution is implemented in terms of stormwater, flow control, water quality treatment will follow those permit requirements. So I'm not infinitely aware of those types of things. So that is a great question that we can certainly address as we put these discipline reports together for stormwater, permit conditions, those types of things. Typically, when it comes to the construction, there's a National Pollution Discharge Elimination System that's enacted by the Department of Ecology, which the runoff has to meet certain quality control standards in terms of, like, no silt and all these types of things. In terms of the more long-term operation of the facility, I don't specifically know at this moment. That's a good question.
I'll speak to that, Jeff. We will be required also to have an NPDES permit for our site activities, which also includes a stormwater prevention plan, pollution prevention plan that we have to report and submit to DOE on a regular basis. That permit always also gives DOE license to come inspect the site at any time. So we have those at our existing facilities already. So that's another level of inspection that we have that a private development may not.
We've got a couple of questions about the creek that's on the site. If we could speak to that. It wasn't shown on the map that Commissioner Gelder shared. So if we could speak to that, and then a question about what water will be discharged from the site, which I would interpret to mean, could it run off into the creek, and could it affect the salmon or other fish populations in the creek?
So I'll speak to the creek that comes from Rova. That is a tributary to Gamble Creek. We will not be within 150 feet of that creek. There's a 150-foot setback to it. So the trees and the underbrush will all remain within that 150 feet. So it will be protected in that way. As far as discharge to the creek, yes, there could be discharge, but after proper water quality treatment and rate control mitigation. And so this will be a stormwater facility that's designed to current standards, that is intended to capture any runoff off the site, to treat it and to store it and to release it at mitigated rates. So it'll minimize erosion or even prohibit erosion.
Another question from the chat. Have you addressed the traffic noise created from the road department trucks running 24 hours a day during weather events? So what noise mitigation will be part of the project, and how will the trucks themselves be addressed?
That will be part of OTAC's responsibility, is to evaluate noise. Now, I'll say that during those types of events, most of our trucks are out on the road. And I'd say 90% of the time they're out on the road. They only come in to refuel or to gather or to restock sand, or materials, for the job. So they're not on site running all the time. But noise analysis is something that the consultant will evaluate during the design phase and mitigate for.
Christina, I wonder if you could speak a little bit to Kitsap County Code when it talks about kind of buffers between different land uses. This is that more intense, this is zoned a more intense rural use. And of course, there's residential that is close by. Can you recall some of the county code as it relates to buffers between those two land uses?
Yes, so noise ordinances in Washington are, they're typically, the regulations are applied based on the type of land use that is the sender or the thing generating the noise, and the type of land use that is the receiver or the thing that is receiving the noise from the sender. And so there are some specific decibel limits in place depending on those two land uses, the sender and receiver. And those are reduced for nighttime operations because obviously if you're sending from a more active site to a residential site, people need to sleep. And so there are some specifically reduced noise limitations for nighttime operations. There are, and if a project, sorry, before I get ahead of myself, if a project doesn't meet the noise standards outright, then they would then be required to incorporate some sort of noise attenuation or other kind of mitigation measure, which could be dense landscaping that would help disrupt the noise, or some sort of other kind of acoustical treatment that will help reduce the noise so that it is in compliance with the requirements. So that said, there are some exemptions for emergency operations and that sort of thing, but those are intended to be fairly limited in scope. So this isn't, it wouldn't be exceeding noise limitations round the clock. It would be in specific emergency responsive events. And so that's how the noise regulations are typically applied. A question about bulk material storage. Will some of the materials be salt? And if it is salt, how will it be stored? And Jacques, when you respond to this, could you talk about how it could be prevented from entering the creek? I think that's a question that we've gotten in the past.
So salt will be stored on the site. It will be undercover. We have salt in our existing facilities, so they're undercover. There is no run on or run off from those piles. We have to maintain them undercover because if they weren't, they would get hard. As a salt hit it, it gets crusty, and then it's no longer it's not useful. So we keep it covered. We even keep them tarped undercover to protect them. On this site, being a brand new site, we'll be able to, well, and let me say this too, they're always on hard surface as well. They're not just on bare soil, they're on pavement or concrete. That'll be the case here as well. And being a brand new facility, we could also grade this site so that we're sure that there is no run on or run off. In addition to that, if there were any salt that were dropped on the pavement outside of the covered area, once again, we'll have a state-of-the-art stormwater collection, water quality and storage facility to treat any of that. So we maintain a pretty clean operation, and if you went to our other shops, you would see that. They're all undercover, and again, they're even covered in plastic undercover.
I see Andrew Nelson has his hand raised to provide some additional information.
Thank you, Christina. I thought it might be just appropriate to add a note that during the tribal coordination that we did on site, Jacques also brought the Department of Fish and Wildlife biologists to visit the site, to walk, to ensure the critical areas, and discussed with the property owner the requirements when building the new access road. And part of that requirement is going to be to cross the existing tributary of the creek that's on the Arness parcel that is currently piped all the way from Bond Road to the east of where the new road access will be. And so then part of the development of the new roadway access will include daylighting that creek, and the current property owner there is working towards and willing to daylight that entire creek, which is an important environmental improvement, as that's a part of this project going forward. So an example of how Jock is working to try to ensure we're looking at all aspects of the impacts of the project.
Great. We've only got a couple of minutes left, so I think we're down to just 1 or 2 questions. How many trucks or vehicles do you typically anticipate being parked at the site?
We have 6 large dump trucks. We have about 8 small pickup trucks. We've got a couple excavators, a grader, compaction rollers. We've got all sorts of various type of equipment to maintain the roadways. But those trucks now, they're not always out at the same time. It depends on the tasks that we're completing. But yeah, there's a number of pieces of equipment and vehicles that are necessary to maintain the road system.
Okay, one or two more questions. Is the new fire hydrant on Rova part of the project, along with the blue water outlets that are on Bond Road from Rova to Gunderson?
That is the water line. It's not part of this project. It's a water line that was installed by the owner to service the whole Lambert area. Of course, we're going to connect to that water line to service our site, but it was built privately. And I'll say this too, the roadway that's constructed is being built privately. The county did not, the county is not funding that road. But that's what the hydrant and the blue markers do delineate that water line.
How many people will be employed at the facility, and how many trucks do you anticipate will be coming and going from the site? I'm sorry, this has to be our last question, and we'll wrap up.
So currently there's 20 employees, 20 road department employees at the North Shop. The household hazardous waste facility will have a couple others there when the site is open. The site is going to be developed at this point. We'll have more discussion about it for anticipated growth to support 30 employees. So the anticipated average daily traffic coming into the site, employees driving to the site, and also trucks leaving the site is about 100 vehicles per day. And that's to and from the site. So that's trip traffic. So there's 20 vehicles, employees driving to work, and then equipment coming to the site to do tasks.
So since we're now out of time, there are still a few questions that we didn't get to. For those who still want to ask questions or make comments, I would invite you to please visit the county's website, fill out the comment form on the website that goes to Jacques, and he can pass on your questions or comments to the appropriate person to get you a response. Jeff, would you mind bringing up the last slide that has the contact information?
Sure. Okay, I just gotta find it here. Let's go. Can You guys see that slide deck yet?
Yep. Two
Okay.
slides up from there. Slide 19.
Okay.
All right.
That's what you need?
No, you're back in the process
like
section. If you
19.
could advance just a few.
There we go.
All right. Please submit comments to Jacques through the contact information on this slide. Visit the project website, kcowa.us/NKSC. Fill out the comment form. Please send your comments. Please send your questions. And with that, I think we are concluded for this evening.
Right. Good night,
Thank
folks.
Thank you all for attending the meeting, and yeah, please visit the webpage. We'll update it as we gather information, and use the comment form or contact me through Kitsap One if you have any other questions. Thank you.